Well, welcome everyone to the Tori Says Show. Today, first of all, let me say I apologize for my extended absence, but I've been working on some things, as you all know, and it has been extremely um, hard to balance everything. And again, next week, for those of you that know, I think it's the 26th through the 30th. I'll be traveling because I'll be testifying um, at certain state senates um, in regards to our elections. So, after having said that, I have missed all of you. I hope you have been busy as always. Um, Doing what is needed. And as you all know, every year I have a show on Constitution Day. And I'm very excited today to have someone that has one of the most majestic minds that I have observed. And I think, speaking of history, as I have said, and many others have said many, many times, well, history repeats itself, and it's usually because we do not learn from it. And, evil is not creative, therefore cannot generate any other things. So I have just activated all the platforms that I am able to stream on. And without further ado, I'd like to welcome Dr. Jan Halper. Dr. Jan, um, let me see if I can get this on. Give me a
It's
second.
my
There we
pleasure
go.
to be with
Hold on. Let me make sure I have you on. There you go. Dr. Jan, welcome to the Tori Says Show.
Thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate you taking time out of your extremely busy schedule on Constitution Day, which is one of my most favorite holidays. And, we had kind of discussed talking about 1871. So I thought I would kind of just, there were so many things going on during that year. I think it's really important we revisit history. And I think the, all my listeners would love to hear your statements because you have had interviews on multiple platforms, both mainstream and podcast, where we discuss where you discuss history and draw the present. I mean, without our history and the present, we don't have a future, right? The past actually is a reflection or I would say, what is it called? Foreshadowing of the future. So um, I would like you to just say a few things to everyone, and then I guess we can delve into 1871.
Well, I'm just happy to be here, and all I hope is that I bring some useful information. That the best feedback I've gotten is that I've given people hope. But what I want to say about that is that trust your intuition, because the only reason what I said gave you hope was you already had it right.
Ah, that's an interesting aspect. It's almost like, when people tell me, "Do you believe in God?" and I said, "Believing means that you're not sure of something." Knowing something. So I guess it's kind of that hope stems from people in their gut knowing, but not being able to consciously uh, attest to it or verbalize it. I
Well, sometimes it's frankly, it's Satan getting in there trying. The way I describe it is that we operate from our intuition and our physical responses. And what I mean by that is, um, if we see someone with a sour face, we get a reaction, in our gut or in our head or someplace. And I try to liken it that our intuition and our physical reactions are like a car. It's solid, it's there, the parts are put together. Our strategic reasoning or our thinking, our challenging ourselves is no different than the driver getting in the car, deciding which direction to go, to turn it on, to put a blinker on, whatever. And sometimes what happens when that when we hit on our reasoning is that's where Satan comes in to make us doubt ourselves, shoot ourselves in the foot, mess up, etc. So for me, one of the most important things, because my first that interview, I mean, I've been doing this for 8 years. But that interview on GB News that went viral, and the feedback I've gotten has been, you've given me hope. And what I want to say back to them is, please trust yourself, because you had it right before I spoke.
Exactly. And that Satan, it rides on doubt and fear. That's where he enters. And I agree. And I loved your video. I mean, what you said was stellar. People are not taking the 40,000-foot view to be able to see what's going on, because sometimes when you're in the woods, all you see is trees. So sometimes you have to take an aerial view, right? And your gut tells you more than anything. And I actually use signs for that, Dr. Jan, where I have told my audience before, your nervous system, there is an independent brain, right? I would say. And I learned this when I went, to school for the sciences, that it has its own feedback system. Your gut has its own brain. It doesn't even have to go up to your central nervous system to respond. It responds on its own. It's an innate response, and it has its own little brain center. So I always say trust your gut, because it's like it's something that we've stopped paying attention to. We can hear
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And the way I describe it, because I don't have your scientific background, but I say all your gut reaction is logic scrambled up. It's everything you've perceived, it's everything you've learned, it's everything you've taken in. And it is the key voice that's giving you information. That doesn't mean you always act on your gut, but it does mean you must listen to it. And if you trust yourself, then you have the capacity to trust God. You
yeah,
can't
then
trust
you
God
know him.
without trusting yourself.
Yeah, because then you know him. It's kind of like there was a conversation that I observed between two people, and some person uh was explaining to him that, calling him black or himself white was wrong, because he says, if I have cups, a red cup, a blue cup, a yellow cup, and a blue and a black cup, and I put water in all of them, suddenly you've segregated. The vessels are not the same, when inside it's the same thing. We're all the same on the inside, and we look at the vessel rather than the content sometimes. And I found that to be an extraordinary explanation. I saw it somewhere on Instagram the past couple of days, when I get into that TikTok brain type of 7-second attention span. And I think it was one of the most fascinating explanations, is how we don't pay attention to the actual core, and understand that we're all the same. People say we all bleed red. I mean, I can, you know, say, well, I don't know if I agree with that, but in the end, we all have water in our vessels, and we're the same. So I thank you for that. Um, so I thought we could start with 1871, which was a busy year. And I just wanted to bring a simile, and I will do a more in depth show on this for my audience. But back in 1871, we had our Civil War going on, right before that. And Alabama actually filed a grievance. Um, it was done by the United States against the United Kingdom, Great Britain, right? Because the British had supported Confederate naval vessels during the American Civil War. In essence, it was interference in domestic issues. So, one of the most notorious ships was the CSS Alabama, which was actually built in Britain and inflicted significant damage on Union merchant ships, during our Civil War. And so the United States actually filed for compensation for damages that was caused by these ships that the British had built for the Confederates. So basically, there was a treaty that was created which highlighted the dispute between two nations. And one of the most prominent ones was that of the Alabama claims. So instead of going to war, instead of the US declaring war on the United Kingdom, the Treaty of Washington established a system of international arbitration to settle these claims, right? Because this was foreign interference in domestic affairs, almost like foreign interference in domestic affairs that we observed during the Russia hoax, or foreign interference that we all may know but cannot state in other matters that are domestic to us. So there was a panel of 5 arbitrators, and that was representatives from the US, Great Britain, Italy, Switzerland, and Brazil. And that panel was established to actually hear this case. And it was a significant step in how international disputes are done without war. Now, the outcome of that panel was to rule in the favor of the United States, awarding insane damages to the cost about 300 million today, I guess. But at that point, it was 15.5 million. And let's not forget, we bought Alaska from Russia for 7 million. So, that was pretty big back then. I mean, we bought all of Alaska from Russia for 7 million. But it was compensation to the United States for the Alabama claims and other grievances they had against the United Kingdom. So the impact of that treaty was very important precedent for peaceful resolutions on international disputes. And one thing is that it hasn't been completely overturned. Usually things are overturned or kind of made obsolete or superseded with subsequent agreements and developments, but it's no longer in effect in its entirety. Particularly the one on the Alabama claim settlement, which is foreign interference in domestic affairs. So I will have a show just on that because I think this is an important part of history that people don't even know exists. And so I wanted to just say that for 1871 before I kick it over to you, because you've got some really good stuff on 1871 too. It was a busy year, wasn't it? Almost like 2023,
Well,
2024.
I think if we go back to helping people understand, because we always until until I started doing whatever research I had to do, um, we never knew that the District of Columbia was not part of the United States. We knew the Democrats were pushing to have a representative from there, but they are a foreign soil. They are a sovereignty unto themselves. So, in other words, it's very difficult for Donald Trump to have given any orders to people I don't like. I don't remember their exact name. I think it's her initials are MB or whatever, the mayor of District of Columbia, because it's not part of the United States. But we were so in debt from our Civil War that we owed France all this money. And those brilliant bankers, the Kabbalists, just came to our rescue and said, well, here's what happens. We would like you to be the military, the U.S. The Crown Corporation, not the Crown, because any king or queen has to ask permission to enter the 1 square mile of the City of London. It has its own Lord Mayor, it has its processions, it has its Freemasons, it has all of that. And the Vatican, especially when it was exposed of their money laundering, Italy had its hands tied, because if they did anything to investigate, it would have violated the sovereignty of the Vatican City. So these three independent sovereignties came together: US in charge of the military, the Vatican being the bank, and the city ruling the financial world, literally ruling the financial world. Now, when we had been paying our taxes to the IRS and that good old Federal Reserve, it was only once Donald Trump put the Federal Reserve under the Treasury. Prior to that, this was all the Kabbalists. And because we owed so much money to the UK after they paid off our debts, or to the bankers, what happened was that we, for 151 years, continued paying our debt off. And probably there are a couple of moments from my GB interview that I have wanted to say forever and ever. And the part that our tax dollars for 151 years basically had been going to the cabal. It had not been setting off of our debt. We still owed. And the next thing I have loved saying to them is, you all made fun of Trump when he walked in front of the Queen. But how about if you go back and you look at that video? You liberals talk about microaggressions and triggering and freaking out. How about if you think about it as micro expressions and you watch how her hand signals him? And he takes two steps, she walks behind him, and then she comes to his side and they proceed in unison. The fact is that Trump needed to do that from an optical standpoint to tell us back home he told the Queen. Now, he would have told the Queen sooner because, his around the world tour, when he went to Saudi Arabia and he went to Israel and he went to Vatican and NATO, etc., uh, the speaker, I think that's what he's called, of the parliament, John Burkow, came out against Trump and wouldn't allow him to even speak to Parliament. So that postponed his ultimate conversation with the Queen.
That's interesting. So they wouldn't allow him to speak.
Well, you know, uh, as I said, I am well known as a Trump supporter here. So if there's any time there is a radio or TV show and they've got someone who wants to tear them apart, guess who gets to come and deal with them? But they fundraised and created this huge balloon with Trump's face and making it a baby with a pacifier. And I was in front of Parliament when they were doing that. And there are a couple of journalists that I have high respect for, and they were there. And they asked me if I'd make a comment, and all I did was laugh at them. You think I'm really going to do that? I mean, if this is how they can express their dissatisfaction with Trump, they don't.
They don't want to hear.
They'll,
Yeah.
they'll never even. Who cares? They don't care. So, but that was a lot, and I don't want to go back revisiting a media history that tried to ruin his relationship and conveyed all of that. But I will say that once he was elected, because I gave a lot of talks at universities, these young people would come up to me and say, "Will I get arrested if I go to the United States?" That was the damage our military, sorry, our media did to the perception of Trump. It took 2 years for Jake Tapper to come out and say that Charlottesville, it was edited improperly.
Dr. Jan, we're entering into J6 territory now because that was an operation. Keep going. I'm liking this.
All right. So, fine. I go back and forth on Jake Tapper, but the fact that he had the courage to say that CNN edited it to give the wrong impression and not give the full soundbite. But we know that that's what they have done. And so while I'm on that, before you get to J6 or wherever you want to go, is that when you think about what the media has done, he came down the escalator and good old Huffington Post came out and said, "Oh, great, he's running for president. We're going to cover it in the media." And people who are listening know of all the other different occurrences that went on. But the fact that I want you to ask other people when they say, "But the media said this and the media said that," is why? are they so afraid of Donald Trump? This is not because they dislike him. I know I get different messages, but people don't like that he says mean things or the way he says things or he's inappropriate. You know what? Who cares?
Oh my, you know what? Nobody is more focused on trashing your name than the ones that are worried you will tell the people the truth. And so he spoke truth and spoke to the people, but also the one thing that he also did was empower the people. And once the people wake up from the slumber of this nice fabric of, you know, media production that they've been, it's like a spell, a siren song, right? That they've been under for decades, and they wake up. Well, then they realize that they are many. And those that yield the arbitrary power are very few. And so he was very dangerous in that. This is one thing that we all must understand, even for yourself, Dr. Jan, I'm sure, people will move ahead in front of you to trash, the person that is speaking. And that is exactly what they did, even though our fantastic mathematicians at The Simpsons predicted President Trump. Right? We can get into the quantum predictive analytics because, I joke about time travel because that's what I dabble in. And people mock
Oh
me.
my God.
She thinks she's a time traveler. And I'm like, well, obviously they don't understand quantum, predictive analytics. So,
But that's so funny because when you look at that, how does The Simpsons get so many things right?
yeah, because they had mathematicians as writers, people that
Oh, well,
dabbled in,
let's forget
yeah,
that. Let's forget that part. The fact that they get so many things right and they have such a huge audience, what they're doing is they are really educating the people, or as I sometimes say, once the truth is told, the mind is stretched. It can't go back. It might fight to go back. But um, I had also brought up when people were asking me after Trump made the comment about the 6 Middle Eastern countries, etc. What the media didn't cover was the fact that those countries were decided upon by Obama and voted upon by Congress. And they leave those things out. And that is what gives people the wrong impression.
well, I have to agree. I mean, we all know, I know for a fact, and I've spoken about this before, the alleged Biden administration is extremely frustrated with Barack Obama. The people that are in the White House that, once you get appointed into a position like in the White House, that where you're like a member, part of the NSA advisors, but whatever advisor you want to be, you kind of feel important. Oh, I finally made it from staffer to here. They're extremely upset because Barack is pulling all the strings. I mean, everyone that's been appointed was his choice. I mean, someone actually pointed out that his, dormant, POTUS 44 account was asking for money for what's going on in Libya. I can get into that. I mean, on Valentine's Day in 2021, I got the website impeach44.com. I think that will help undo a lot of the things that they don't want to talk about, and a lot of the issues that we are facing now and will be facing very shortly. That's just my
Well,
2 cents on that.
right. And so if I can give my 2 cents, which because hopefully it will make 4 cents, and then people will have all this information and they'll be able to make their own
And
decisions
paper
on
dollar.
what we're saying,
Yes.
as we're sharing it with them. The interesting thing is that the military actually had wanted to take Obama out, but they convinced Trump to run. Once they convinced Trump to run, that was all they needed, and Obama stayed. Now, for you to say Obama is the puppeteer, those are my words, they weren't your words. Um, on one hand, there is that possibility. On the other hand, we have to ask ourselves, he renewed 13848 just recently. I did an interview and someone said to me, well, how do you know he did it? I said, if the announcement comes from .gov, then I know that the White House is telling us that that in fact is true. Um, and he has had to, I underline had to, forced to, required to, whatever word you want to use, to renew every single executive order that Donald Trump put in place. The reason for that is that Donald Trump declared continuity of government after highlighting three national emergencies and Congress not responding. So he did turn it over to the military.
Well, this just a reminder for everyone, just so they know that Executive Order 13848 is imposing certain sanctions in the event of foreign interference in the United States election. And, this hasn't been adjudicated yet, right? Because I guess election interference, Dr. Jan, I would assume even what happened at J6 is considered part of the election process. Therefore, if there was foreign interference in regards to the January 6th event of certifying elections, that's also part of the election, you know, process, and therefore also counts under that executive order. And I agree with you. Why hasn't he repealed that? There could be two reasons. One, like you said, the military has it all under control. Or two, they're terrified that there may be foreign intelligence that will interfere on behalf of the people too. So there are two, sides of it, and we see the media playing both sides. And media, meaning now media is a very loose term. We can call establishment media, and then regular media, which is alternative. Which again, I'll circle back to your comment of trusting your gut and see what
Well,
resonates.
uh, if I may come back on that about why Biden, God, I didn't even get his name right. I love it
Biden.
when
I
I
like that. We should call him that because he's biting everyone in the tush right now with his policy.
he
And our
is
national
he
debt is almost at 33 trillion. And the fact that China is not buying any more of our bonds means they're coming to collect.
um the fact that he is forced to renew each of these is the other indication that Obama is not the complete puppeteer. He might be guiding him to do all these things that are totally screwing up our country, but he cannot extend it beyond the certain executive orders. How did Trump know on child and human trafficking to file that in December 2017?
I-
How did he know on September 12th, 2018, to file the executive order that outlined the possible cheating that would happen in 2020? Not in 2018 midterms. They already knew that was going to happen. It's because one of the reasons Hillary stayed in her little cave before she could come out and compliment or whatever she did to say, Trump, you won, was because the military has been well aware of the cheating that's been going on within the Democrats. And they thought they had it covered. Their problem was it was actually two things. One, they never expected Trump to get as many votes as he did. And the other thing was that the military monitored so the fraud couldn't happen. And Hillary was in absolute shock because I actually posted on my LinkedIn an article, and it started off in the olden days when I was first involved in politics. Uh, the convention was the anticipation of who is this nominee going to pick as his vice president. They didn't campaign together for months and months and months. And we got to know because that was when it still was the cigar smoking, and I truly mean cigar smoking, backroom decision making by the elites as to who was going to be next. And that Donald Trump changed that entire paradigm.
Yeah, yes,
Thank
he did. I mean, in 2016, there were a lot of people that were contractors and military that had their eyes all over the elections and ensured that they were kind of bottlenecked to one state where the fraud would be honed in, maybe coming out of a
you.
closet, West Brunswick, right? Just hypothetically, I guess,
Right.
allegedly, which we'll see pan out in Georgia soon. Uh, but but again, uh, the beauty of it was that after the elections were conducted in 2016, the Democrats, using Jill Stein as a segue, were able to see where they failed, and this is why they had all those, uh, you know, recounts for the Green Party that they observed. Because if they really thought that the elections were stolen, they would have opened it up, but they couldn't because then it would prove that they had committed the fraud. And so,
Of course.
Obama was a genius.
Right on. Right on. No, no, no. I'm sorry to interrupt,
No, no, no,
but
no.
sometimes when someone makes the point, and that point needs to be heard, I completely agree with you. And the politicians that say, oh, it was so safe or whatever, it's because they were probably part of the fraudulent game that was going on. And they don't want anyone. And I mean that with rhinos. I mean that across the board.
It's everybody. It's everybody. Even the unions use the same system. Those are rigged too. But what is incredible is they didn't open up the machines then, but then the people that are advising Barack Obama advised him to create CISA. And suddenly I saw the head of the DHS, Jay Johnson, on January 6th. It was January 6th and then 7th, the proclamation. He proclaimed without Congress to create a new division in DHS. And suddenly, uh, DHS has now pretty much federalized our elections after that, incrementally. And under the CARES Act, they now
You're absolutely
took
right.
away our digital
But
sovereignty.
I'm really glad you're giving that historical perspective to people that are listening, because there have been a lot of things that have been in play, uh, planting the seeds to be sown. And we are now dealing with a lot of that.
Oh, we are. These are the repercussions that we have. I mean, I remember in 2020, it was March 2020. I had friends, you know, considering I'm an amateur cryptographer, I run in those circles, right? Because I dabble in quantum predictive analytics. And so there was a conference that was being held, and one of the attendees, believe it or not, was there talking about new elections. This is in 2020.
Of
Right,
course.
and I have their
Of course.
name, their picture, the documentation from that conference, and I'm like, "Why is DHS?" Well, the person there didn't go as DHS. They went as someone private, and I'm like, "But this guy is part of CISA." And they have, like, a little blurb on the DHS website, which, by the way, after I brought it up in November 2020, it was scrubbed, right? They were talking about new elections. Now, during this conference, there were, how they have breakout sessions? They were talking
Yep.
about how they can monitor discussions about the elections because the media should be the one reporting. And that was at that point that I told my audience, I was of the fact that the people at that point would have woken up to the point where they would have not allowed elections to go forward, right? But unfortunately, we had elections in 2020, which pushed back the timeline for 2024 being a hot mess. Will we have elections? That's up in the air because right now, the there's so many moves that are already pre-planned for checkmate. And right now what they're doing is just throwing trash in front of every move, thinking that we're going to trip up when nothing can stop that. But the question is, the only delay of trash they can throw in is not suspending the elections. And the only way we would not have elections is we need President Trump in office before 2024. And there's got to be maneuvers that we can use to do
I,
that the Constitution allows us to.
I, I, I'm going to refrain from any comments to that, um, because I think that there are too many variables. But I would like us to go back a minute because you threw out this reference to quantum analytics.
Yes.
I would imagine, along with myself, many people listening would love for not only a definition, but a few examples so we understand it better.
Oh, the predictive analytics? Yeah,
Yeah,
well, basically, it's taking in and I've said this before, my audience is well
it doesn't
versed.
matter if you've said
Yeah,
it
um,
before. I really want to say that because I don't want anyone who's heard it before to feel like, oh, darn, I didn't take it in. We need to hear things numerous times. So
right.
please
So,
give
yeah,
us.
so it's like statistics. Let's just on the basic level, where you can predict what the outcome is. So, you take in as many variables as you can quantify. And so, for example, the news, for example, legislation that's being passed, people that are actively partaking in creating legislation, um, the markets, what the media is reporting, what the media is not reporting. And you put that all into one algorithm, and that algorithm, you give it a point. Say, for example, I want to see if General Haftar will take over Tripoli, right? Because Tripoli is the only area of Libya that is not controlled by the Libyans but by the United Nations. So I want to know if General Haftar will successfully take that. So I will then make sure that the algorithm is fed the appropriate data surrounding that from the most far-fetched too. Not only their media, but their health, what the UN influence are, who's funding Tripoli, how are they doing it? And it will give you a prediction of a yes or a no on percentages. Well, if this happens, that happens. And here's the fault that many people that put data like this together is that they take the human element as an absolute value when you should treat it like a variable node that is absolute. And that gives you the most accurate predictions. Like I have stated things that will occur only because they were part of my mathematical calculations, how my algorithm in my computer works and tells me. So it's very easy to be able to predict. This is why the pre-crime unit that former Attorney General Barr created is actually successful. Because if you use all the variables surrounding one person of interest, you can pretty much extrapolate based on what we know on psychology, physiognomy, their history, and now with social media and internet communications, you get even more, right? Phone calls transcribed, text messages, you can predict how much of a threat they are or if they will commit a crime. And the same thing goes when you target demographics, right? As a localizer, I understood that if, say, for example, there's 10 people and I want to influence them all to wear blue, right? I'd have to, through that 10 people, figure out who would be the most influential among those 10 people, then predict if I tell them, hey, I'll give you a cookie if you tell everyone to wear blue, if that would work or not. If it's a no, then bribery is not my avenue. I may find it in a way of subtle psychological cues, like maybe showing a lot of blue colors or saying, oh, look, doesn't she look fabulous in blue? And subconsciously giving them that direction. So that's basically how quantum predictive analytics work. And I say quantum because there's a lot of data to crunch. I mean, the NSA, for example, they've got their work cut out for them. So hopefully Space Force, with all the nerds they hired, they can get it done better. Because if we actually use our keyholes in regards to collecting that information and adding that into it, it makes it more intuitive. And it's not so much AI, it's number crunching and showing percentages. So I hopefully I've explained it to those that are new. We were just cut off from the Chinese feed. Um, for those of you that are listening in China, someone's setting it up on WeChat under another. I think Dr. Jan, you triggered the Chinese.
Oh, well,
Yeah,
good.
the Chinese killed the WeChat feed. So one of the moderators there is setting it up for those of you listening on WeChat. Just keep your things open. So that is exactly how predictions happen, and this is why we can see into the future as per se, because our history and our present pretty much foreshadow the future, and I really did hope that over the years, there was more unity in the message in regards to people that were fighting for our nation rather than self preservation, which for me, and I've said this like it's a broken record, self preservation is the ugliest human quality I've ever encountered because that encompasses a lot of interactions and actions that people would do based on that. And it's unfortunate that now, where our nation is at stake, where we're all in the same plane, we're still trying to shoot the plane down with all of us in it. And it would have been fantastic if everyone just came together to do exactly what our president told us to do. He gave us, he said, I'm giving power back to you, the people. And unfortunately, people have not taken hold of that. Instead,
I
we're
don't think
still
we
looking for
should
something.
criticize that. I'm with you, and I don't think we should criticize that, because my take is that we trusted for far too long. We thought that they had our best interests on the agenda, and they never did. And to come to that realization, even last night, I had a conversation with a really dear friend of mine, and I said, it took me a long time to see that they were evil, as opposed to they're behaving this way. Why are they? And I think we never want to see the worst in people, but there is a dichotomy going on right now. And there are people who hate us, who hate America, who have subscribed, enrolled, whatever, in the group that thinks America is horrible and want to destroy it. And we need to stand firm.
Well, I think what you're just saying, Dr. Jan, having for many Americans that don't go overseas and have not, engaged in in-depth conversations with people overseas, they can't fathom that people don't like America. Right? They can't. And now this is easier for them to survive. So we have to be grateful to President Trump for giving the people a voice, for, and we should be grateful for everything that has happened, even though it is horrific, from the mask mandates to the vaccine mandates to the insane hate speech, the boobies in the White House, this insanity that we see. We should be grateful for that, because now the people of the world are also watching, and they're realizing that the people of the United States did not agree with all members of Congress and Senate, and they are outraged. So that has saved us as a nation, and we should be grateful for the trials and the tribulations that we have been put through these past years, and the fact that they held President Trump's presidency hostage, hogtied. He still got things done, because now the people of other nations see that the people aren't bad. It was the leaders, and they can simile that to theirs. I mean, their corruption is out and open, right? For us, it was all sprayed with perfume and it looked all great on the outside, but it was systemically rotten in the inside. So I think that was one of
Oh,
the best gifts President Trump gave us.
I'm there with your passion and the emphasis in which you presented that. I have a slight concern, and not with anything that you said, but with the fact that there is also a faction that is trying to convince us that we are wrong to think that way. And I just want to say, if that faction is coming into play, if what's going in your mind, you are doubting yourselves, stop. Go back to what your gut's telling you, and then look at the evidence that's being thrown at us to try to make us think we're crazy, we're wrong. We've got it. We, just as much as the military has got the election results, we as human beings have got it right in our belly. We've got it. Our mind has sent it down to us. We know. So we have got to trust ourselves. That doesn't mean you don't talk to other people. That doesn't mean you don't use other people as a sounding board, because that reasoning side, again, when the driver gets in the car, who does the driver consult? And you consult a lot of people before you make your own conclusions.
I agree. And trusting our gut is very important, extremely important, and people need to hone into that. I mean, even the people of the left that the left panders to and the socialist movement and the globalist movement is pandering to are also skeptical of the elections. They I know in New York. I was just recently there for some work events, and almost every single New Yorker that I ran into, the one thing that I would always say, because you initiate conversation, it's one to one, and then that one person speaks to others, is wow, if we don't want war with China and Russia, we need Trump back right now. Like, we had no wars, we had money in our pocket. And this is like, even from the Uber drivers, I'm like, yo, I'm going to tip you in cash because they're taxing you. And when we go to digital, you won't have money. Keep this in your house. These are conversations we should have with people to expand their thought process, because in their gut, they know something is not wrong, but they can't verbalize it because they've been trained to keep it quiet. And this is why we have these, pronoun things. Dr. Jan, I'm not going to, sugarcoat it. When I get emails from the New York Times or the Washington Post because they want something from me or they want to trash me or anything, right? The minute I see an email with the pronouns, I'm like, I just circle it, and this is my response now. Hey, when you know where you sit, we could talk. And it's actually been very effective. They've left me alone. But again, it's
Well, I've
conversations.
been, I this has propelled me to the public after 22 years practically, other than supporting Trump since 2015. Um, I used to be the management expert on the NBC Today show, but I left the US 22 years ago because I wanted my privacy back. And I will tell you that until that interview went viral, I was so happy I was incognito. I was I was like, "Oh, this is great." Um but I always believe you rise to the occasion, and what's most important to me is to talk about things that gives people greater clarity and greater reinforcement in their own assessment of things. I'm not all knowing, but I do happen to have a perspective on the information that I get. And if I can share that so that people end up making their own conclusions, coming to their own peace, that to me is worthwhile on a Sunday afternoon, because I talk with my hands and my poor dog thinks I'm giving him orders and I have to keep giving him treats because he thinks my hands are telling him to do something. Um, but I just want people to trust themselves and to figure out the information that we get. God sends us messengers. Now, I'm going to contradict myself in that I was on a BBC radio show for longer than an hour for our inauguration on the 20th, 21. And they said, I hope you don't mind, we're going to begin. Now, I had already known that it had been recorded. So I said, no, 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 go ahead. About 6 minutes later, Fox started with the official broadcast of the inauguration. I have had so much fun sending to my media contacts pictures of poor Jill changing the color of her shoes. You know, they tried to pull it over us. And what they don't realize is we're too smart. We're too aware. Not smart. We are too aware. We gave our trust. We turned everything over to our politicians and our media, and we ultimately discovered that they didn't care, that they were screwing us over. They were giving us the right words in hopes that we would support them. But my biggest concern right now with Congress, I mean, I think Matt Gaetz's speech was incredible. And I think the fact that a large group made the important rules changes in Congress so that they can throw this duplicitous human being out. Um, they want things to change, and we need to support that effort because it's funny. I'm in only one private group on X, and I had said the only reason that McCarthy floated, we're going to look into impeaching Biden. You have to listen to his conflicting words. We are going to have a full House vote. Nancy Pelosi never had a full House vote. Why?
I know why.
And that, oh, wait a minute. And I want to hear, I want to give my psychological interpretation here because that's all I have to offer is that they wanted to act all high and mighty and better because Nancy just took control and did it. And Kevin wants to be the person of the people and let everyone have a say, which frankly is BS. So please tell me
Yeah,
your.
my spin on it. So, I was in DC actually. And first of all, I just wanted to make an observation when I was at the Capitol Hill Club. And the last time I went there was for an event for Republican appointees, presidential appointees thing. And I noticed that the bushes are no longer on the portraits there, which was, huh? Right. So, yeah,
Oh,
no bushes. And I'm like, oh, okay. But what I realized is that McCarthy even said that Obama gave the okay to go forward with impeachment. And the reason is that even though we have very good people in Congress that many of us are working with in regards to impeaching Biden for crimes, my goal for the information that I obviously contribute now in my capacity as an investigative journalist, um, we're looking to not impeach him for being incompetent, right? But to impeach him for actual crimes, right? A lot of people talk about the Hunter Biden laptop. Dr. Jan, I don't know if you know, but out of the three people that everyone knows that Garrett Ziegler has it, Jack Maxey, I have it too. But the one thing that I felt was it wasn't fair to attack Hunter only because he's such a broken person. Now, while we have actual crimes that link back to the Obama administration, uh, they're going to flip this. This is going to be a vote to impeach him based on age. This is another maneuver to exclude President Trump from the ballot. And they've all agreed upon it, except for some of the Republicans. So we're going to find ourselves in the pickle where people are going to want to move forward to impeach Biden, but for reasons that we don't want. We don't want precedent because the minute they impeach him because he's incompetent, can't tie a shoe, he's too old, right? And they do the whole age thing, they then quickly and swiftly pass legislation to disallow people of a certain age to be on the ballot even. And that's
you
their
know,
their 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 angle
Tor-
here.
sorry for
No, no, no.
interrupting, but Tor, that's a very important insight for people to take notice of. Because if that is the game, then we need to think about a counter reaction to it. One thing I know, okay, I lived in San Francisco for many, many years. And on a federal level, I have consistently voted Republican. When I have dearest friends who are even Republican. However, they need certain laws, healthcare situations, regulations, etc., that will benefit them. And San Francisco, other than New York being the capital of the gay community, I often voted in favor of what would work for the city or the of San Francisco or the state of California. And I don't have any problem with that. People might want to throw that in my face. I absolutely don't have a problem with having done that whatsoever. Now, I in 1984 worked, or prior to it, worked with Nancy Pelosi as a Republican and many Republicans. It's not like, oh, I did it. No, no way. The Republican community of San Francisco got together with the Democrats to work on bringing the Democrat convention to San Francisco because it would benefit everyone. I worked on Nancy Pelosi's very first congressional campaign after Sarah Burton died. I knew John Burton very, very well. His wife took over. And Nancy, at that time, along with Dianne Feinstein, we considered them to be conservative Democrats. They cared about national security, they cared about the economy, they didn't pander to anyone, but social services was also important. Within that sphere of decades, I also worked on Dianne Feinstein's mayoral recall campaign for the sole reason that I did not believe that any special interest group, I didn't care if I was aligned with them or against it, no special interest group should put a politician through that, which meant it put the
Wait,
electorate
are you talking
through
about the
that.
Harvey Milk stuff?
Oh, this is even
Okay,
before.
yeah,
Yes.
because I was like, I was all over that Harvey Milk stuff. Like Feinstein actually lied. I did a
Well,
full
I,
analysis, but yeah, I get
I'm
where you're going from the
sorry.
political side of things.
Okay, I'm not here to say anything negative about Diane. What I'm here to say is based on the issues, and I continued to support Diane because she was more like Nelson Rockefeller, a conservative Democrat caring about foreign issues, foreign policy issues, caring about the economy, and also doing the social side of things. Um, I don't know who Dianne Feinstein became, and I don't know who Nancy Pelosi became. And the only other tidbit I will give your listeners is that when I was still of dating age, I used to take my dearest friend and ask him to take me to the gay bars at night because we had a code, MTYT. He would turn to me and he would let me know MT, my type, YT, your type, because it was so accepted within San Francisco for mixes that I just didn't want to date someone that was at the gay bars at night and trying to fool me by day. And that relates to Nancy Pelosi's husband, Paul Pelosi.
Ooh.
This event happened at his home. Of course, Nancy wasn't there,
Mm.
nor would she be.
Mm.
Want you to understand that part of the way of life is some couples were completely open about it. I mean, you knew that X was married to the complete gay guy and gave him, didn't care where he went out, what he did, whatever. And then there were the couples that had a silent agreement, which is why I asked my dear friend Rob, I got to go to the gay bars with you. If I don't go to the gay bars with you, I'm not going to know who is supposed to be trying to fool us. And I want to understand better because I probably know a lot of their wives, their partners, their whatever. And it's an acceptable thing within San Francisco to have that kind of mixed marriage.
Dr. Jan, I'm going to tell you something. When I was in London, that is where I would go to Friends of Dorothy bars for the same exact reasons.
Right.
That's
And
odd.
thank, thank goodness for those people don't have to hide themselves anymore. I think it is horrible for any human being to feel they have to keep a secret about themselves. And I'm not making a comment about sexual orientation or anything else. If you feel you have to keep a secret about yourself or an aspect of your life or anything, go back and look at that and figure out how you're not going to let it remain a secret. I'm not saying post it, I'm not saying come out and tell the world. What I am saying
You get
is
into
give,
politics, disclose it
well, no,
privately.
I'm not even saying disclose it. What I'm saying is you don't have to feel it needs to be a secret, but you can make the choice you don't want to share it.
I had the same thing working under the Obama administration. The same thoughts that it's very deceptive. You know how you say we needed to see who we could trust. It's extremely deceptive when you can't own yourself, or at least if you don't want publicly, which, like you said, people shouldn't be ashamed of what they like. I'm all for it. I won't judge you as long as you don't force me to play the game of pronouns, or because you put a wig and lipstick that I need to call you something else, even though you're obviously not. This is where I stand. But when it comes to politics, government interactions, contracting, uh, you shouldn't be deceptive in something so personal to you, when going forward to represent the people. And that's the reason that I would frequent the areas, around Piccadilly and Leicester Square, and those out in West London, the more secret ones, to be able to see who's not being honest. Um, and like you said, people shouldn't have to hide. They should just be themselves. Being yourself doesn't affect me unless you impose it on me. But deception is key here. Speaking of deception, today is Constitution Day, right? Do you know
Right.
that on TV, they're talking about the Constitution being so arcane that they want to get rid of it? Today, of all days, I see that on,
Of
I think it was
course.
NBC. Today, of all days,
Of
um, which is also deceptive because they're trying to say it's arcane and they can't iterate it. I want your thoughts on that, their arguments from a psychological perspective, of course, on how they're trying to say that it's archaic and causing issues in our democracy.
Well, given the fact that I'm not up to date on what's been reported, I can only back up and give my general sense. The fact is that any any culture, any society, any group of people worked better together when they agreed on the values and the morals and the principles. We are supposed to condemn those kinds of things at this point because if you're going to align with the Democrats, everything has to be horrible. everything has to be wrong. Everything has to be, how dare could you think that way? At the same time that they present this condescending compassion, that they care about all these lesser individuals that don't have what they have. I lived in LA well, I grew up there and spent a lot of time back there and have a lot of friends there and go back. Well, I haven't left the UK since March 10th, 2020, except for to spend a week in Malta. But prior to that,
No, wait, we should talk about Malta.
but
But go
prior
ahead.
to that, prior to that, I used to travel 75,080 miles a year, and I loved it. I from the time I was 18, I always had to be on the go. I just can't believe how content I am not being on the go, but that's a personal thing. So let me let me back up to the fact that we, in fact, don't encourage the kind of mix between cultures. We jump at judgments ahead of time, and we need to be able to accept the world that is different from us. But the media's pushed us into the opposite mindset. And that is one of the things that is bringing us down.
I have to agree. And this is why I'm putting it on the screen so we can both see it, is
Okay.
crazy. Scholars warn outdated constitution has put democracy at risk. Today on CNN.
Of
This is
course.
insanity. Pure insanity that they're talking about this, because the Constitution that we have, right, allows for that diversity. And I'm going to repeat an example that I'm pretty sure my listeners are very tired. And Dr. Jan, you can't see the Rumble comments on the software that I'm using today. But there's a 5,300 people on Rumble right now, and all of them, their ears perk with Malta. So we're going to have to circle back to that because I've done
Oh,
extensive shows on that. But I wanted to say the example that I always bring is, and I had stated this over 15 years ago when I was being told by one of our agencies that was a customer of mine that we need to use these people. And I said, no, if I have a room full of people, 10 people that all wear the same outfit, that think the same, that have been trained the same, and I give them a problem, I will maybe get one problem after a solution, and it will be middle of the road. What I need is diversity. I need every single person in that room that will be figuring out the issue to have a different religion, dress different, be from a different socioeconomic background, speak different languages. Everything has to be different about every individual, because when I throw a problem there, they will argue and they will fight, but they will come up with 100 solutions. And out of those 100, we will have the best one that is identified. And that's exactly how the Constitution is. It gave us foundations where we exchange, some rights for others, so that way we can alleviate the population of micromanagement and have representation. Which again, I go back to, I don't believe we have fair representation, but our Constitution is at risk right now with all of these changes that they want to make, because that is another, as I said, roadblock they're throwing into our next, chess move, because there's three and they can't change it. There's nothing, all their pawns are gone. So, the queen's been sacrificed, they're dead in the water. So this is another piece of rubbish they're throwing so that we have to hop over. And I wanted your take on that. Just, it's Constitution Day. Like, how do you have a conversation with people that are telling you, well, that was created, 200 and somewhat years ago, and we don't need that, and it's arcane, and this and that. How do you explain that when we're coming full circle to our 250th anniversary, which will be
you
fantastic?
do.
But how do you argue that
It's
and
simple.
start a
You
conversation?
don't. You don't. You don't even try to argue. What you try to do is understand where they got their information and what made the foundation of their opinion on that. Unless you have your ammunition, And your ammunition is finding out their thinking, finding out their reasoning. Because unless you can understand that, they're going to perceive you as preaching and dictating at them, not even to them, but at them. And they're going to shut down. Honestly, it's no different than our politicians, because someone from the other side of the aisle raises a point. Do you ever think they're sitting there going, hmm, let me think of the advantages of that, the benefits of that, the downside of it, the parts I agree and disagree with? Oh no, they're plotting their retort in their mind, so they have never fully heard the concept, the concreteness of what was presented. I also, I indulge me, everyone. I think we have a preschool behavior of politicians, between Mitch McConnell saying, "I'll never approve anything of Biden," and Nancy talking about, "This is exactly how we do a smear campaign." They have never wanted to work together. Never, ever, ever, in recent, I will only say in recent decades, because when I actually served for the mayor of New York City, and at that
Wait,
time,
which one?
no, 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 if I say,
Okay, I won't say then. Okay.
okay, no, 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 I'm just, I'm
That's
still,
okay.
I'm still at the point where I will occasionally reveal my age, but it goes back too
You
many.
sound like me. I show my age all the time. And it's like, no, it's the
Okay,
genetics that keep me
fine.
looking young.
Um, uh, so I totally forgot my point here that I was going to make, which is perfectly okay. Um, so where were we? You got to bring me
Yeah,
back.
how's this? How's this? The Constitution is a living document. And living in the sense that it's still alive, it's still breathing, and it's still relevant. So changing it is inappropriate. And you said to avoid communications because, yes, we do look like we're dictating and we're just.
No, the other side.
Yes,
Sorry,
the other
sorry,
side will see it.
not
No, but
clear.
even people on our own side, Dr. Jan, when I have conversations with people and they say something and we're supposed to be on the same side, they will say that it's like a didact. And I'm like, no, 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 no. You just don't have your information in order. Right. And that's all. So I agree with you. Sometimes engaging in a conversation where people don't understand the
Okay,
concept very well, it comes off as dictating and my way or the highway. And I understand that. Sometimes it's best just not to play the game. Though
okay, no,
we're gonna
no,
have to play that game now.
wait. Sorry, if you don't mind my interrupting, and I apologize,
Not at
is that
all.
when someone comes back to us that we don't understand them, the objective is not to get our point across, but the objective is to understand the construction of the way they think. Because, and I gave this example once and I get asked to give it again. People seem to like it. And I only came up with it because I was doing a long radio show in the UK, and with a liberal, and he threw something at me, so I threw back at him, um, uh, just a little test for him to decide whether he was a liberal, middle of the road, whatever. And my ultimate response to him was, okay, so you don't have balance. So think of it this way: if we're all at Disney World, the conservatives are on Main Street, the conservatives are in Frontierland, and they are in Adventureland. But if you want to communicate, to play, to interact with any liberal, you've got to go over to Tomorrowland or Fantasyland because those are the only lands they live in.
Exactly. The fabric of society that Comey said, that they have built for us
Right.
through the
Now,
media.
um, uh, I hate to say this, but I thought it was going to be an hour.
Yeah.
Happened to have a lovely puppy that I trained. When he has to go out, he has to ring a
Well,
bell.
that's fine because I can play a video if you'd like
Good.
that I
No,
have.
he's dinging a bell, and this will probably take me until at least 8 p.m. or afterwards, the walk I need to take him on.
Okay.
So, what I'm saying is, what else would you like to cover while
Quickly.
my
Let's do that
puppy,
quickly.
while my puppy whining away? Me, me, me.
Yeah, no, Malta sounds good because Malta is a very good strategic location in the middle of the Mediterranean. And since I work in quantum predictive analytics, I use a lot of history, and a lot of people, I've had shows on Malta before on its importance in regards to many things. Most specific, the Ottoman siege of Malta in 1565, and the establishment of the Knights of St. John's, which are now known as the Knights of Malta, also known as the Knights of Hospitaller. Is that what it's called? And they actually have a pretty good constitution, where it's a republic. They have a parliament. They've got good fundamental rights. I just want to know. You mentioned that you were in Malta, so I just want to know, like, how's it going there? I haven't been in Malta since 2000. I want to say 2011.
Well, I went last summer for my birthday. And again, I landed here in the UK on March 10th, 2020, having left Mar-a-Lago, and we were in lockdown. So I looked things up, and the Spanish flu lasted at least 18 months. And I decided I wasn't getting on a plane. This is someone who has traveled 75, 80,000 miles a year easily. And I said, "Oh, I've really wanted a puppy. I'm going to get a puppy." And then I decided I really don't. I mean, since I was 18 years old, it didn't matter where I traveled to, but I'm really loving not traveling. So then it spurred other people on in my building to get puppies, etc. So we have a lovely puppy daycare community. We've got 3 West End performers and etc. etc. Now, I was so exhausted by the time I got to Malta, and I'm a lifetime member of lifetime platinum member, or whatever the latest thing is, of Marriott. I invited a good friend of mine from Estonia to join me. So we had this great 2 bedroom suite. He did his thing, I did my thing, which was mostly, I'm a California girl who was as pale as could be, who needed to have a little bit of color. And he went and saw all the different places the films were done. Um, so that is my long way of telling you. I can tell you about the pool. I can tell you how to get to the shower. I can tell you how dark the sun will make you at that time of year. But it was only because I needed some sun by 2022, because I hadn't had any for too many years being a California girl. So I'm sorry to disappoint.
No, no, message received. If you'd like, because I have puppies as well. You have the link. I'm going to be on because I haven't done a show in a while because I was busy in New York, busy in DC, busy in Vegas, busy in California, busy. Where I'm going to sit down and just talk about the Alabama treaty, and you can feel free to hop on if I'm still on.
Oh,
I will be on because my listeners have felt neglected for 2 weeks, and I would love for you to take your puppy and then come back because I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about the national debt and go back to King William from 1066 in regards to the bankers.
okay. Actually, I wish I could.
Darn it.
Well, we've done 2 hours, but I would like to talk about one other point before I sign off, and
Please.
that is bravo, Matt Gates. I've never supported Kevin McCarthy, and I'm working on an article right now, which will be on drjan.substack.com in the next day or two, about how we need to stand up to Congress, because even though they have a 76% disapproval rating and an approval rating that hovers around 20%, they just disregard it because they have their own personal pollsters. And if their constituents are pleased with what they're doing, they basically give the middle finger to those issues. But they've never thought of themselves as a collective body. They don't think how frustrated, how upset, how fed up, how incensed we are with their lack of making things happen. And so I am working very carefully on this article. And if I succeed in what I want to communicate, I am really hoping that you and your listeners will not only read it, but pass it on, but more importantly, get it off to our feckless, spineless GOP electors, because they really don't do anything to protect us. And we need to push on it now. There are different people who are great on X, who do great investigative research, who bring intelligence to people. My feeling is I need to support them, yeah, on the intellectual and posting side, to be able to make other people see it, because we know what's going on. I'm going to repeat that. We know what's going on.
Yes, we do.
However, we are faced with a lot of people, as I love John Rich, who said, is where the sun don't shine. So we need to pull their heads and their thinking out of where the sun don't shine. And we need to not threaten those who haven't put their head there yet, but they're a bit skeptical. Because if we're going to succeed, we need to understand first, pardon my language, but I'm only going to say it this way, they're fucked up thinking, because they truly are fucked up in their perception of things because of everything they're told. You know, I will tell you, this is the first time I've ever used those words.
How can we not? That's what is it called? Righteous indignation, right?
Oh,
How can we not?
cleaning up my language.
How can we not? I drop it sometimes. I have a potty mouth when I get upset, and it's more frustration. And I would add to that that many people in Congress, and I've met with them, there's only members that I can count on one hand that are listening to the people and actually trying to fix things and trying to smooth over the other ones that are, like you said, listening to other things and not paying attention to what the people are really asking for. And my listeners know best. They legitimately write letters, make phone calls,
Great.
and all the time. Like, even for Paxton, we went to bat for him before he was ever on the stage for impeachment. So, yeah,
Bravo. Really.
yeah, in 2021,
Bravo.
we
Because
went to bat for him and acknowledged him as America's attorney general. And I know that the lawsuit that we had in Texas was his way out to not be impeached. So now we're going to have to pivot a bit. We always have to understand, sacrifice one little thing to get something better. Having Ken Paxton in power and having such a big win is very important for America, because I want to see him as attorney general of America. I want him to clean up our federal law enforcement, to make more concise lines between the DOD, the FBI, the CIA, and the State Department, which are now just a big blur and you don't know who's who. And, I'd like for him to remove that black over $800 billion budget that the SCSs have to pay for connoisseurs to lie and confidential human sources to lie, or confidential informants to lie. We need to remove that. And I believe that his win was fantastic for us, and maybe Congress will start, shifting a little bit. As for Mitch McConnell, I mean, he's not even there. He's checked out a long time ago. I mean, he's
okay.
probably like one of those football androids that we saw the other day.
All right. So, as a psychologist, for the moment, with that hat on, I would say do not interpret what has happened in the now and apply it to a hope of what could happen in the future. More importantly, is that we need to be wise to their machinations, because they are so good at it. A year before the 2020 election, the Democrats came out and said, well, if Trump loses, he'll never leave the White House. Little did they know that he already knew they tried to cheat in 2016, that they found the ways that they cheated in 2018, and he needed them to cheat in 2020. But they are so, when you are consumed with committing, not even feeling, but anything that is not above board, they have blinders on. There is not a moral voice in their head saying, is this the right thing to do? Should I do it a different way? What's the importance of doing this? None of that exists, because they have no moral psychology.
We're going to that moral floor that I say. Everybody has a moral floor. That's where I judge people. When your back is up against the wall, when you're in a box, when you're stuck, what decisions can you make? That is where you can really demonstrate the person's moral floor. It goes back to, what you said reminded me of that, scripture, Matthew 10:16. Behold, I am sending you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. So be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. And people mistaken the interpretation. For me, it seems, hey, you've got to be innocent and kind, and your intention should be pure. But that doesn't mean that you won't be shrewd, discerning, and cautious in the way you react to your interactions. So, for me, I agree with you. We shouldn't take what happened and just assume, because not everything is what it seems. This is all
Laura,
a show. It's orchestrated.
you've said something very important, and that is the expectations that others place on you. Because you said A, therefore you should, sorry, I've got the hiccups, act as B. That's not the way life works. The fact is that you can say A, you can even disagree with B, but no one should make an assumption that because you said A, that they impose upon you the way to respond or to behave, because we don't spend enough time understanding one another. I was on a spaces a few nights ago, and honestly, it was bothering me that several people kept asking me a form of a question of, how do I reach these people? I care about them. I want them to know I care about them. Well, I can tell you as a shrink, I do not give my opinion for a very long time or at the outset or whatever if I don't understand how their mind works, how they think, the way in which they interpret things. I'm useless. They might as well just walk away from me, not pay me. And not that I necessarily care about the payment. I care about making a difference and reaching those significant baubles that are playing in their mind. We too often, as much as I think the Democrats come from hubris, thinking they know everything, in general, politicians have made an assumption that we are a culture of being an ignorant society that doesn't care about things. I think there's some truth in that, but that truth has expired. We have people in general, and again, I'm not talking party affiliation or anything, but we have people who have cared about our country, about politics, pulled back, became apathetic, things went wrong, got a little bit more engaged. Um, Depending on the size of this group, it really doesn't matter. The bottom line is more and more and more people have opened their eyes. They don't have to post, they don't have to say anything. The fact is, they've realized that there is an entity that has tried to screw them over, and that is their motivation to know more of the truth. I couldn't ask for anything more of the people, because when people know the truth, they will either do the right thing or the wrong thing. But if they're part of MAGA, they're going to opt for the right thing.
Well, we
And,
can thank President Trump for that. He helped
well, no, no,
open
no,
up the eyes for
stop.
many.
Sorry, stop. I don't. I rarely come out strongly disagreeing. We can thank the people for having the strength to embrace it. Because if we don't thank them, if we don't acknowledge their own strength, Trump didn't do it. He didn't put gold stars on their forehead. He didn't give them an attaboy or put a pat on their back. He
No,
gave
but he gave them the directive that he's giving it back, and you're right, and that is correct. We wouldn't be here right now still fighting and winning. People aren't seeing that we're actually winning if they didn't have the courage to stand up, and
exactly.
that's correct.
And I get lots of comments in response to what I write on Substack or my occasional posts on LinkedIn or Twitter. And I just love when I get, you've got to tell Trump we need action now. And of course, my response is always, honestly, I never understood years ago what let God let go meant. But if we believe that there is a power greater than ourselves, then we are capable of let go and let God. And there isn't any other decision maker around that I can see that wants to make life better than our life already is.
I have to agree. I am actually proof of that. When you leave your life into the hands of God and say, you know what, I can't control this. I have full faith in you and I know you exist. Not I believe, but I know the world is your oyster after that. And the people are starting to see that.
My, sorry for interrupting, but my life has always been to, in all my consulting, etc., has been to focus on the customer. Right now, I need to tell your customers, your listeners, I have gone way over time.
Yep, you gotta
I,
hop off, and maybe we can do it. I know you're overbooked, but
wait,
we can
stop,
text.
stop, stop. I'm doing this incredible apology to them, and you interrupted
You
it.
need not. We were so excited for you, Dr. Dan. You need not apologize.
No,
They
I
know.
know. I just want them to know, if I could go on, I have enjoyed this to no end. At the same time, I have other obligations moving on to the evening, and I would love a repause.
Same.
Okay,
My favorite.
you take care. This was really a lovely experience, and I thank you for that.
We appreciate you. I appreciate you. And, you know, we have a lot of things happening. We're $30 billion, less than $30 billion away from
Okay,
the 33 trillion mark. And
truly,
I'm panicking.
I truly need to leave at this moment
Pop
because
off.
my dog has been incredibly patient.
Please go ahead, Dr. Dan. I appreciate you. I can't wait to have you back. God bless. So, guys, I am going to take one short break. I need to fill up my coffee cup and I am going to play for you one of my favorite videos. And the reason I'm going to play this for you is because it's highly important coming up. This next week is going to be pretty interesting. And I have a lot to talk about today on Constitution Day and things that are happening. So let's listen to what President Trump had told us a long time ago. Carefully. Carefully. New Year's. I think you'll understand it more, even though it's just a commencement speech. It says a lot. Here we go.
Years from now, some of them may look back and ask themselves whether they've made the right choice. Thank you.
Never, ever give up. That's fact. Now, I had a fun with Dr. Jan, and I have to apologize. She shouldn't have apologized. That's why I was like, don't apologize. Because, I was running late for my show and I ate up about 40 minutes of the time chit chatting and catching up. So that was more my fault, right? Because, when you get two ladies talking, so hopefully you guys picked up what we were putting down. But allow me to crack my knuckles and let's get to work. So, first things first, I apologize for the hiatus, but I did say a few years ago there will be a period of time where I will not be able to stream. But, facts, truth, history, and predictive analytics are not falling short in regards to fruition. I have to say that a lot of things have transpired. And while I throw caution in regards to this impeachment, I would like to tell you that, okay, we all know that this impeachment is a wolf in sheep's clothing. But I will tell you, like I said earlier, I can count the good on one hand. And sometimes you have to introduce things correctly. I mean, you know what? What do people say? I don't know anything. I'm a grifter. I'm this, I'm that, all that stuff, right? I'm going to tell you, I had a very difficult decision to make, which I prayed on it. I thought about it. I had actually made the decision that would have put me in harm's way. Harm's way in respects to, and I will say this, very important people said you might even be off, not by the feds, but the actual people, because of a maneuver in regards to information dissemination. And so I decided to pivot. And that pivot is exactly what God needed to throw my way. And I appreciate that. I think the prayers that are being said for our nation and the prayers that I have been putting, I was mulling it around a lot. And I was like, it's okay. It's okay. So what? What if they, whatever? At least it will be done. And it's like, not that way. So there's an alt maneuver. That's all I can say on that. And it was for the best. Now, in regards to the impeachment, when you're corrupt, and that is another thing. Guys, I was a swamp creature. I know how they work. I know how they talk. I know how they walk. I know how they put things together. I mean, there's no one better than myself to tell you what they're planning, because it's the same MO, only upgraded to fit the times that they're implementing it on. This is why history is so important. But what's fascinating is that I caught myself making that decision and putting myself in harm's way, which was unnecessary, because I thought like I used to. I was in that same pocket due to the frustration, right? Due to the frustration that I have, how slow things are and how horrifically disgusting it is. I mean, even though Dr. Jan was talking, we were having a conversation for people to listen and not just hear the conversation, but listen. There were people talking about things like, oh, this and that, or comments like, oh, Michael Curry did the Erickson. He didn't do the Erickson report. The ICLJ did. All he did was repackage it. Like, stop. Get out of here. Please. Like, stop. This is why I prefer not putting video, because people pay attention to what's behind you, your face, your movements, right? Rather than pay attention to what's being said. And we're so conditioned to talk smack that people are still putting things out. Now, going back to the impeachment, Zeus Jupiter just made the same comment, saying that they are not allowed to base experience on age for the position. It's an ADA issue. I'll tell you what, national security will trump that. Okay. The thing is that there are some, I'm nobody. Let's just say it's coming home. Okay. It's coming home. Okay. When I say this, it's coming home. You all know that I had portions of the laptop before anybody had the laptop, like before Rudy Giuliani got it, which then gave it to Maxie, which then gave it, I gave it to Garrett Ziegler, but he says it didn't work when he got home. So then he got that too, right? I've had it way before anybody. And that's thanks to the FedNet. Because, there are a lot of good people. A lot of good people. Within the FBI, within the CIA, within the State Department, within every single agency, there are very good people that are working very, very hard, extremely hard. So understand, even just from your community, you see very deranged people and kind people. You see woke people anti-woke people. You see people that are confused about their gender, others that are not, others that just walk away when you ask them factual questions, but they're good people. So always remember that. See, we need to go back to the thing where we're not believing in good and in God, but knowing. There's the difference, the knowing part. As I said, our debt clock right now is at 32.9 trillion. We're less than 30 billion away for the 33 trillion mark. Okay? Our clock is literally ticking. October 2nd is going to be insane. But next week is where everything starts to pop off. These next few weeks are completely bizarre. You know, it's so weird that FEMA is organizing some shutdowns, some broadcasts on the same day that they want to try in Georgia. People are not taking a step back to look at what's being said. And this is the problem that we have. We have too many pundits that opine, right? That opine with bullshit, right? That makes them special or important. And it's horrific. It's bullshit. Okay. Again, I will spell it out. Bullshit. Okay. Bullshit. Now, many of you believe that you're going to see everything that's going on. You don't. And I can't even repeat most of the things that are going on. I can tell you that I've been to the, Capitol Hill Club many times in my life as a presidential appointee. And I saw for the first time no Bushies. Well, I didn't. Actually, the person that was with me was like, whoa, they only have good presence. I didn't even pay attention to it until it was pointed out. I was like, wait a minute, Bush used to sit there. What? Bushes are gone. So there are a lot of things happening and a lot of people playing certain roles that are necessary. Okay. They're very necessary. But you're in the forest. All you're going to see is trees. All you are going to see is trees. What you need to focus on, and that's the main thing that I appreciated Dr. Halper putting out, is that you need to start trusting your gut. I see people all the time saying you're talking cryptic. I don't talk cryptic. It's fucking English. Cryptic is the bullshit, like we have it all. And it's like, what do you have? You're sitting in a basement talking smack. I just have to say that there are very good people that we have in Congress. Very good people. It's going to be a lot of fun. Though I am miffed at the fact that the FBI is not even trying to pretend that they're not wiretapping me, because no matter how many times someone calls me, I get the tap. Guys, you got to do a better job at that, okay? It sucks. So they already know it's coming, good and bad. They can't stop it, though. See, that's the point. Impeachment. It will go in the direction that McCarthy wishes it to go, but it'll be flipped on its head by people who don't exist. And that's going to be fun. So let's just go to the Constitution before I delve into that and some of the J6 stuff. So, and I'm glad that Dr. Jan brought up executive order, that extended the emergency of foreign interference in elections, because that is very important, because I'd like you to understand the simile that I'm about to state. A lot of people don't know about the Washington Treaty of 1871, right? In a scenario right now that we're in, we have the government going to war with its own citizens in an attempt to maintain or consolidate power and control. That, my friends, means that we are at civil war. It's only civilized, and I've said this before. It is a civilized war that we are in. Because a civil war typically, in anyone's mind, involves armed conflict, right? With a single country or state or different factions, which may include government or rebel groups and fighting for control and whatever reasons. But here are the key characteristics, and tell me you do not see it. We are at conflict within ourselves. There is a civil war within our borders that involves all of us. It's the government against the people. That's how it looks. Tell me that it does not look like that, and I will tell you how wrong you are. There are multiple factions as well. Civil wars, actually, one identifying factor of civil wars is that they feature multiple factions with competing interests or ideologies. Let's give an example. We have the right-wing alleged media, right? And we are not right-wing. All of us here right now having these conversations are not right-wing. None of us are right-wing. Q, not right-wing, okay? There is no side in our country. We are one. We are all centrist. We sit in the middle because we love freedom, right? We love freedom, right? So we sit in the middle. We're not right wing. We don't identify with right or left. We're just Americans. We're not black or white. We are the same thing inside. But in civil wars, we need multiple factions to have a successful civil war, because this will include government factions. Oh, I agree with this. I don't agree with that. It'll have rebel groups, George Floyd groups, BLM, Sunrise Movement, MAGA, Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, 20%ers, 3%ers, 10%ers, whatever the fuck percent you want to be, that all, have their own ideologies, right? And they compete with each other's for interests and ideologies. They piss on each other's trees to see who's more important. Okay? Okay? If you imagine our country as the bald eagle, it needs a left and a right wing to soar, which means that there needs to be balance in the middle, which means that we take some of the right and some of the left ideologies to be able to fly, right? Right now, we have people egging us to be only on one side. Our eagle will fall. So this is why we are in such confusing times, such bewildering times too, where we're having conflicting information. And like I said, the people that want to shut you up the most are worried that you're going to tell them the truth. Like if someone asked me straight up, hey, what do you think about this person, right? Face to face, which I wouldn't have a problem answering, I will tell it to your face, because I don't stab people behind their back. I don't talk shit behind people's back. I say it straight to their face. So, I mean, that's terrifying for a lot of people. People don't like that. They don't like straight talk because then they can't control you. Now, that's how civil wars pander on that too. But now you have to understand that in the Civil War, there are political and ideological motivations that bring it. Civil wars arise from political, ethnic, religious, economic differences, grievances, and ideological standpoints, right? And we've got all of them going at the same time. We've got economic issues. We've got grievances with the government on how they're acting. We've got religious issues. Dang, you're not even seeing it yet. The Catholic militants, that's going to be a big problem coming forward. We have ethnic issues. There are still people that are like, all Muslims are bad, because they were brainwashed by an actual Muslim to do that so they can create more dichotomy. We have, political issues too. Now, there are radical movements in every single section. Radical movements in the whole discrimination by color, radical movements in the whole discrimination by sex orientation, radical movements in religion too. And I'm going to say this again. While we think that the drug cartels of Mexico are pretty bad, wait till you see the religious cartels, okay? Why do you think those are separated by state? Pay attention to see who's paying for all the destruction to our infrastructure. Who's paying for all these speeches for people to come and tell you how amazing they are? Pay attention to who's paying for the hotels in New York. And then you have to wonder, why are they housing all these people in hotels? What are they going to do with all those humans now that they're going to say, well, you're sick, so we're just going to drag you off? India already started it. And the thing is, I love India, but India as a government does not love their impoverished people. And they've got too many Indians living within their borders that they need to call. In any civil war, The central authority of government has to break down or face challenges from insurgent or rebel groups, and that leads to prolonged conflict and instability. Now, have rebel groups or insurgents come in, hence why they pull that insurrection show. Do you know that one of the lead organizations that helped facilitate the bodies to make it look like a mob is actually working with the people that are in jail right now? You all know I don't like Enrique Tarrio because he's a criminal informant, right? But what's happened to him is not fair. And I'll defend that shit. I don't agree with half the shit they did, only because they were playing the stupid Brooks Brothers bullshit in 2023 doesn't work. But I will sit and I will defend you even if I don't like you or I don't agree with what you're doing. I will defend the fuck out of you, because if I don't defend you, you won't defend me in the future, per se. I don't expect Enrique Tarrio to come to my rescue, but you know what I mean. Kind of like the Austin Steinbart. I would talk about how he was being detained, not because I liked him or that I agreed with the bullshit he was feeding, but I was trying to demonstrate that if they can hold him on nonviolent crimes and throw him in prison before his court, they will do it in the future. Tell me I was wrong, because you're seeing it now. Tell me I was wrong because you're seeing it now. Anyone can tell me that I was wrong on that. Absolutely not. So we are at civil war. We have a civil war. It's been going on. And this civil war has entered into international territory because it draws external actors who support one side to the other. Bring me back to the Alabama claims. And I want you to pay attention to the Alabama claims, what I'm going to tell you, because it's really important. The Treaty of 1871 is a very significant event in U.S. history. It is called the Treaty of Washington, which was signed on May 8th, 1871. And it was between the U.S. and Great Britain, which was also violated, I would say, with Christopher Steele and all that bullshit with the Russia hoax, but we haven't gotten there yet. We're still at infancy stages right now, because that's going to come back real hard. This treaty resolved several disputes between the United States and the United Kingdom. Key thing was the Alabama claims. And like I said earlier, while having the conversation with Dr. Jan, what happened was the British were building ships for the Confederates, and then the Confederates were taking those ships and they were causing harm to the Union. So basically, there was international or foreign interference in domestic issues, like a civil war, which has been now taken and written to be not okay, and that you can be sued. I mean, I, as the United States, if I had any power, let's just pretend that I was one of the nameless advisors of the Presidential Board of Advisors, the first thing I would do is get the best legal minds and say, how the fuck do we sue the United Kingdom, Australia, Denmark, Germany, key here, Germany, France, and all the other nations that helped with the Russia hoax, because they interfered in an American Civil War. And see, what happened during the Alabama claims was that, you know, those ships that Britain created for the Confederates created significant damage to Union merchant ships, stopped our trade, caused us issues. So, you know, we sought out damages. Hey, you involved yourself in our bullshit. Now you need to pay because we have monetary damages. So I'd like all of you to ponder for a second while I check, you know, the chats, because I have to go back and forth. And I am going to be changing the way I do these shows so it's a lot easier, but to see all the comments. But I want you to think, right? With just the Russia hoax, that foreign interference into the civil war of us being able to elect a president, which we already knew they were going to steal the elections. We stopped that. And we bottlenecked it to one state. I made that clear. You should go back and listen carefully to what I have said. We bottlenecked it to one state, and that's Georgia. Shit's going to pop off. Wait till you see it comes out in Georgia. But we have to be very careful because there's a lot of people there that don't want us to succeed. And there are people that are hiding within our movement playing the game. So, having said that, how do we quantify the damages of the Russia hoax? Let me see if there's music. They don't have that Jeopardy song, but I know they have music in this app. Give me a second. Let's play music for like a minute while I read the messages to see what kind of damages would you claim from those nations that had their stupid fake ass spies that were all paid through SES funds. That's how they paid the Penn Quarterly Group. That's how they paid Fusion GPS. That's how Perkins Coie commingled the money. It was all a distraction. We need to get that budget gone. But allow me to see. But like, what damages do you believe we incurred as a people? Let's see. There's no sound. So let's see. Is this going to play? Okay, and to be clear, I'm not talking about monetary damages that we will ask for. Like, where would you say you, as a person in our nation, what was the pain and suffering that can be monetized and quantified that was exerted on you because of the Russia hoax? All right. Let me stop this down tempo music that this app has. So it violated our right to free and fair election. That's pretty true. That's pretty true. But we did have the election and he was elected in 2016, right? They preemptively did the Russia hoax, which was to influence the election. So there you go. Great job, Mia. That's exactly where we should be looking at, right? We should be looking at that. We should be looking at what damages did they do? There was foreign interference in our election process. Prior to it, they were bringing up the whole dossier that we knew the feds paid for, but they had muddled it so much with foreign assets that you couldn't see them until you got the nitty gritty of it. And they were just like showing their tushes, right? All their tushies, fiddlesticks. They were all out, mooning us like crazy. And we sat there and lapped it all up and tried to defend something that they had paid for. I say, since none of them are actually paying for the defense we have there, right? They just wipe our debt clean. And it's like, let's just sever our ties. That's good enough for me. That's good enough for me. You want to cut a deal financially? I would like to sue the shit out of every damn nation that participated and offered up intelligence, because there are communications. HSI, there are, right? There are communications where they're discussing the damn dossier, all right? And we had Mueller smooth that over. He cut deals with people within President Trump's camp to screw him, And allow me to speak to that too. So, what was that comment? Let me pull it up. So, In the Matrix had a good friend of mine, Jason Sullivan, on their show. What was that comment they put that I'm like, I'm working with someone? Hold on, let me I don't remember it. Let me find it again. Let me find it. because this is the type of stuff that I should respond to thoroughly. God, there's so much I want to tell you guys, but I can't. Only because it would compromise the situation. Let's see. Yeah, I know I posted it on Telegram. I know I did. Or MG's show said something like that. I work with people or something. I've seen pictures walking around, floating around with me and General Flynn working together. I don't work with General Flynn. Okay. I lost my job defending him, which I really want to say why I was defending him, but I'm going to keep my mouth shut again. I did tell you that the only reason I defended him was not because I thought he was in the right, but because I saw that he stood up for his soldiers, which was the first time I've seen a politicized general do. And therefore, his moral floor is one that I appreciate. Gosh darn it, where is that thing? I know I posted it on Telegram for sure, but I post so much information for you guys to sit and ponder on. I lose track sometimes. Let me see if I can find it. The MG show said something. Give me a second. There it is. Tory works for Stone and Burn. Have you guys ever heard something so fucking stupid? Let me put it on here. Give me a second. Let me put it up so you guys can see it. I'm not joking. That shit came up. I'm not joking. Stop it. I'm like, where's this guy getting this stuff from? It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Ever. Like, and then there are people that actually get information from idiots like this. From idiots like this that would say something like that. And I know a lot of people think I hate Stone, and I understand why he took the deal. I mean, his age, the shit he goes through, I mean, with his little prostitute lady, everything. But, it's kind of like, dude, just why don't you just shut up and butt out? Just, it's not okay. But here, let me show you. These people that are supposedly giving you the truth and taking heat now, and they're going to make themselves martyrs, right? Here's the comment. Can anyone see the truthfulness in this? Can you guys see this? Can you guys see that? So let me tell you something. This is how I build boxes. So people that have weird protections, like there's a lawsuit that I've been paying attention to, right? That is filed in DC, and it's for people that are in charge that were participating in J6, and the Capitol Police want all these damages and stuff. But then the weird thing is, Ali Akbar, who is now known by everyone, is CIA. He's a freaking asset, a hip pocket asset, hip pocket gay prostitute asset, right? Obviously coming from Stone Camp, because he had the twinks for Trump, which were a lot of guys that looked super young that were posing suggestively saying that they were for Trump. Like, it was the most disgusting thing. But I mean, look at who he has for PR. A lady that was in investment banking and then pimped out high-class prostitutes. Like, get out of here. These are the people you listen to. The people that pimp women out for money is who you listen to. The people that get paid to talk to people is who you listen to. That's a big problem. Big problem. Big problem. Oh, but that's the thing. You live in this illusion, right? That they're smarter than you or better than you. They're not. They're nobody. They're absolutely nobody. They're only what you say they are. So going back. So obviously I published this this documentary on Rumble, and I also put it on Locals. Locals didn't put it back up. Rumble did, because I have the right to respond to the DCMA, right? Locals didn't. Obviously, Roger Stone probably called Patrick Byrne or Joe Flynn and said, oh, she needs to take that down. No. Even your madam confirmed that was real. And not only that, the guy came to me with a copyright claim. So I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is and go to war with them on copyright. Not because I want to save your ass. Obviously, it'll prove that you lied, Roger. But it'll also prove that Five Eyes Intelligence was involved in this whole fucking scenario from 2015 until today. Until today. But when you cut a deal with people like Mueller, right? Unfortunately, you must take in whatever assets they tell you. End of story. That's the way it is. Okay? That's the way it is. And so while I was traveling, I'm obviously, I've been called in to testify in certain places. One state was already predetermined that I was asked to come to, but the others, and then I've been sued by Biden, Joe, but whatever, that's not going anywhere. And it's just whatever, Joe, you won't even survive to see it anyway. So anyway, I put it there so that way we can see what it is. Again, like Dr. Jan said, right? He has renewed the executive order. Why would he do that for foreign interference? Like I said, there's two reasons. One, the good guys that are running the show are masked as subservient to the Obama lackeys, to Obama. Let's put it that way. So they're like, yo, you need to renew this because if Trump's smart, he's going to use foreign intelligence. And if Russia starts to participate, we can nail him with that. So we need to have this executive order. You see how you build a fucking box? You build a box where you're like, yo, if you interfere in elections, you're in trouble. They did. They interfered in the election process. Foreign interference was present in the 2020 election process, but they won't let you prove it. You can go there with, someone admitting it. You can go there with actual communications that the NSA already has where they are planning it, and they will still look you dead in the face and say, it's not relevant. There was no there. But if you turn around and use someone else, we're going to ping it on you, which is great because now you're forced to maintain that EO and we're just patient as fuck. I am the most patient person you will ever meet. I'm not very nice sometimes, especially when I see bullshit, high school bullshit, playground bullshit, when our nation is literally on fire and we are a breath away from having casualties, even though we will win, because not everyone will be on the other side. And that is what frustrates me the most, that people don't understand that. They're unable to digest that. In that clip that I showed in the beginning with Charlie Chaplin's son, which, you know what? Actually, I want to play it again. So if you guys want to listen to the rest of this show, please hop on to Rumble. I'm live there. I don't want to be, I probably might have it on Twitter. I don't know. I might get a DCMA there. They're pretty frisky lately. So I'm going to just disconnect Facebook and YouTube now. So hop over to Rumble because I don't want to get, taken out. So for those of you that came on late, I'm going to replay that clip because I want you to listen carefully to what was said many years ago and how applicable it is to today. And not so much on the